Hello everyone! In this guide, we'll focus on one of the new features added in Miliastra Wonderland in version Luna 8, the Control Motion Device component. I'll show you step by step how to create a fully functional, drivable vehicle. First, our vehicle needs a model. You can either create one yourself using decorations or import complete assets from the Resource Center. I uploaded 2 prefabs of this car there. If you want to follow along with this guide, I suggest downloading these assets from the link in the description and using the Vehicle Model prefab. After importing or creating your vehicle, we need to add some components to it. Go to the third tab and select Add Common Component at the bottom. Our car needs a tap component so we can interact with it and start driving, a custom attachment point so the wheels can spin properly, and finally the most important component, Control Motion Device. Let's configure these components one by one, starting with the tab. In this guide, I use the tab to enter the vehicle and a character control skill to exit it. That's why I only have one option in the tab component called Drive. If you don't want to configure an additional skill for exiting, you can instead add another tab, call it Exit, and set it to not be initially effective. Then adjust the zoom values in Trigger option area to make it slightly larger and easier to interact with. Next, select Advanced Editing under Custom Attachment Point. We need to create several attachment points. The most important ones are for the wheels, and they must be placed exactly in the center so they spin correctly while driving. I also created one attachment point for the exhaust visual effect when accelerating, and one for the exit point, where the player will spawn after leaving the vehicle. Now select Advanced Editing under Control Motion Device. If you made your own vehicle, you will need to experiment with the offset in the entity grounding position. In my case, -0.9 works best. Select the previously created custom attachment point for exiting the vehicle in Character Exit Point. I left Control Entity Collision unchanged, but you can tweak it so the collision better matches the vehicle's shape. The last setting in the first tab is Decoration Movement Performance, and this is what makes the wheels spin. Click Edit Details and create 4 separate decoration movements. I name them Front Right, Front Left, Rear Right and Rear Left Wheel. Motion type can currently only be set to Tire. Enable Rotate with Forward-Backward input for all wheels, but enable Rotate with Left-Right input only for the front wheels, since we don't want the rear wheels to turn left or right. Then, in Associated Decorations, select the corresponding attachment points. Make sure your wheels are correctly connected to these attachment points in the Decorations Management tab. If a wheel consists of multiple decorations, each of them must have a proper corresponding attachment point. Finally, go to the Motion tab. Choose either Control Entity Orientation or Camera Orientation. Camera Orientation means the vehicle moves in the direction the camera is facing, while Control Entity Orientation means it moves based on the vehicle's own direction. I left the rest of the movement settings unchanged, but you can adjust values such as turn velocity, acceleration, or maximum forward speed. That's it for the components. Next, we need to create a separate camera for the vehicle, since the default one will be too close while driving. Go to the main menu in the upper left corner and select Manage Main Camera. Rename the existing camera to Default Camera and add a new one called Car Camera. Set the mode to third-person camera and the viewpoint offset to 2 on the Y-axis. Next, we need to create character control skills. Go to the fourth tab called Combat Preset, then the third tab from the top called Skill, and select Character Control Skill. Create two skills by clicking plus New Skill. Name the first one Acceleration and the second one Leave Vehicle. I enabled cooldown on both of them and set it to 5 seconds. Leave rest of the settings unchanged. We will create node graphs for them a bit later. For now, let's add these skills to our class so that we can use them. Go to the Player tab, then Class, and either create a new class or go directly to the second tab on the right. Under Active Skill, set Active Skill Quantity to 2 and assign Acceleration and Leave Vehicle. Everything else will be handled in node graphs, so let's open Miliastra Sandbox. Let's create our first node graph under Entity Node Graph in Server Node Graph. This distinction is important because the node graphs for our skills will have to be made in client node graphs. This node graph will be mounted on our vehicle. It starts with the event node when tab is selected, since we want to enter the vehicle only after interacting with it. Equal node and double branch check whether the ID of the tab equals 1, but in this case it's not necessary since we don't have more than one tab option. Then we have 4 execution nodes. Set player to activate control motion device, set player to follow control motion device, activate disable tab, and switch main camera template. The first 2 of these nodes cause our character to enter the vehicle and then follow it as it moves. Player entity there is taken from get player entity to which the character belongs node, which is connected to selector entity in when tab is selected. To get the control motion device entity, use query entity by GUID and paste the vehicle's GUID after placing it in the scene. To get the control motion device entity list, we have to additionally connect the previously mentioned query entity by GUID node to assembly list, even if we only have one vehicle, because that pin only accepts lists. Then we need to disable the first tab option, because we no longer want to see the drive option after we already selected it and are inside the vehicle. Set the tab ID in the Activate Disable tab to 1 and Activate to No. Target entity is taken from event source entity from the when tab is selected node, since that represents our vehicle with tab component. The last step is changing our main camera from default camera to car camera while we're driving. We can do it by utilizing the switch main camera template node. Just type car camera in the camera template name. As for the target player list, we need to use similar trick as before, since this node also only accepts lists. Just connect get player entity to which the character belongs to an assembly list, and the list to target player list. At the end, remember to mount this node graph on your car. Let's now create 2 node graphs for our skills. Select Window in Miliastra Sandbox, then click on Client Node Graph Resource Explorer. Navigate to Character Control Skill Node Graph and right-click Create Node Graph. First, let's do our acceleration skill. We basically need only one execution node for this to work, called Add Temporary Acceleration. Target Control Motion Device is connected to query node Get Currently Followed Control Motion Device, and in order for the acceleration to work, we also need to give it the direction vector to accelerate toward. We can do that by connecting follow control motion device to get control motion device's forward direction and the result to orientation. Rest is just setting appropriate values for acceleration and duration. Optionally, you can add some VFX to the car while accelerating. The client node graph isn't the best place to do that, so we can use the send signal to server node graph node for now. Let's call the signal exhaust VFX and also remember to add it to the list of signals below. The second node graph for our leave vehicle skill will be even easier. As you can see, we only use the same node as before, send signal to server node graph, with the signal name this time being leave vehicle. The reason for that is that we simply can't make the player exit the vehicle using client-side node graphs. The necessary nodes simply do not exist here. That brings us to the last node graph, which will monitor the signals made earlier. Let's go back to the server-side node graphs and create the graph under entity node graph. We need two separate monitor signal event nodes here, one for each previously made signal. The exhaust VFX signal is connected to play timed effects node, where I selected Pyro Shockwave as the special effects asset. Target entity is once again taken from query entity by GUID node, using the same GUID of the vehicle we used earlier. If you followed my guide, then simply type exhaust in attachment point name, otherwise create another fitting attachment point and type its name here. The effect itself starts pretty high, so I set the Y-axis offset to -1. You can also select whether to play the built-in sound effect or not. The leave vehicle signal will be connected to a set of very similar nodes as the one from the first node graph we made. The only difference will be set player to leave control motion device instead of set player to follow control motion device. You need both the set player to activate control motion device and set player to leave control motion device nodes to exit the vehicle properly. Only using the second one would cause your character to be stuck in place while still controlling the vehicle. Player entity is taken from the get corresponding value from list node connected to get list of player entities on the field. This time we don't need to create a vehicle list here because the control motion device entity list should be empty here. Target entity in activate disable tab should be once again taken from query entity by GUID with the vehicle's GUID. This time set activate to yes, since we once again want the drive tab option to appear once we exit the vehicle. At the end, again use the switch main camera template node with the camera template name set to default camera this time. Target player list will be once again taken from assembly list node connected to get corresponding value from list. Mount this node graph on your vehicle just like the first one. There is just one last thing we need to do. Go back to the character control skill and add our previously made character control skills to the animation editor. Select animation editor at the bottom and on the node graph event track, right click and select add event. For the acceleration skill, choose acceleration, and for the leave vehicle skill, choose leave vehicle button. That's it. That's the basics of creating a fully functional drivable vehicle in Miliastra Wonderland. I hope you found this guide useful and thank you for watching. See you in the next video.